Good morning. So this is Pete Duranzio, and we're going to be doing a training today for Crash Magic. And today's training is on layouts, which is a means of producing PDF output from the program of your reports, which is how all the reports print out, but this is to create some more fancy ones, if you will. So first of all, most of you probably know this, but I want to make sure everybody's aware. These meetings are available. We're doing a series of them, and this is the series. I just went to our homepage, PD Magic homepage, and I clicked on the mini trainings information. If you can't see my screen, please let me know, but I think it's publishing properly. In this knowledge base article, we list all of the trainings that we've completed and all the trainings that are upcoming. And once we have completed a training, we will be posting its recording up here, and you'll see recording instead of join meeting, so you can go back and replay those. And those, as I said, they're on YouTube. We have, I guess, what's called a channel up there. That's a little bit new to me, but we've been publishing them so that you can come back and review them, replay them, or give them to someone else at your organization that may be interested in seeing them. Each time we do a training like this, we need to pick a data set, and in the past few times we've been choosing Arizona data sets because, and I guess we chose Oregon one time, because those users were online, and so it seemed appropriate to use their data. Today we're not really doing anything that's very data specific, so I just wanted to pick actually frankly a new client. I don't think they're even on today, but it allows me to look at their database, and we'll explore it a little bit, and that is Lake Forest, California. They're a southern suburb of Los Angeles. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. I am on. Tanya is on as well, and she helps out with these meetings. She's also the person, for those of you that don't know, that provides a bit of our support and all of our configuration work. So anything to do with your configurations, she's the person that'll always get handed to take care of it. So hi, Tanya.
Good morning.
Good morning. We also have a number of ways of contacting us. Again, if you go to our main homepage, PD Programming, you can click on Contact Us, and you'll get our main tech support number, sales number, our fax number, FTP, and so forth, our email addresses, and so forth, if you want to contact us. I do ask that any questions that you have that are specific or between you and PD Programming that are not general for everybody, do contact us after the training for that. However, one of the nice things about these trainings is that we do them for about an hour, hour and a half, I'll speak, and I'll take questions during that time anytime you like. But after the training, after I've done speaking, we're going to have about a half hour to an hour of whatever questions you may have. We'll start with questions that relate to the training, and then we'll just move on into whatever else you have. So it's a great time to just jump in and be able to get questions asked online. Okay, I'm going to meeting, introduce, contact, sessions. Okay, I think we are set with the introduction stuff, so I'm going to head right on in. This being a layouts, this is a topic specific. We've actually renamed, if you go to the page of all the trainings, we've renamed them all. So they no longer say they're administrative or they're advanced. What they are is they're topic specific. And so the Wednesday meetings will always be beginner, and the Thursday meetings will always be topic specific, which will be varying degrees of more advanced than beginner. But I just want to mention today, I won't be going through the process of how you create studies, how you create various different reports or set their settings specifically, except as they relate to creating a layout, using it in a layout. So I'll assume that you either know how or you will learn how to create studies and create reports that you could then use for these layouts. So let's see what else we're looking at here. We're going to show some layouts that have been pre-built, so you see what it looks like when you've already got some layouts available to you, and then I will spend most of the time describing to you how layouts are created. Please feel free to interrupt, to stop me if you have any questions. The other thing that you can do is enter the chat. Part of GoToMeeting, one of the windows there is the chat window, and Tanya will be monitoring that so that you're not interrupting me when you speak. You can do that verbally, but if you start typing in, I won't look at that until Tanya points it out to me. So that's a great place to enter questions. Also, if we have a connection issue or if you don't have a microphone or you haven't dialed in, that's a great place to post those so you don't have to worry about audio. All right. I'm about to get started. Without further ado, are there any questions before I get rolling? Okay, so yesterday we had a beginner training and I had lots of questions and it really livened up the meeting. So anybody who wants to jump in anytime, just please do. I'm going to log in to Lake Forest. And again, since it's not a beginner meeting, I'm not going to worry about showing you what the screen would look like if it was your first time. Most of you should be used to seeing a study, a list of studies, list of some reports inside of those studies, and so forth. And in fact, let me just delete this. I was playing with this a moment ago. I want to show you what it's going to look like when there is none there. Okay, so where I'm going to start is with this study. I'm looking at Lake Forest and Serrano Road, and I've got 27 crashes. This is actually a real great point, good starting intro to this. If you are creating layouts, and frankly this applies to some other reports too, listing reports and some others, and filters. When you're building them and you're trying to figure out the logic and figure out if it's just the way you want it to be and you're fine-tuning it, pick a small study. 27 crashes, great number. You may want 2,000 crashes for some corridor you're doing, or for some report you may be grabbing 50,000 crashes to look at summary information, and that's fine. Build your reports with a small data set so that it takes a shorter time to render, to let you see a refresh every time you make a change, and then once you've got it working, you save it and then you open it up inside of a larger study. And I'll show you how that works as well. Okay, so I've got this nice study. It's 27 crashes. Looks like it's actually 6 years, 5 or 6 years at this intersection. So now that I've got that study, I've got a set of data, I can start creating layouts. Now, one thing I'll note is if I go into, for example, a listing, and I choose, let's just pick a really simple, everybody has the case ID listing. I just choose a listing. There's my crashes. If I say print, click on the print button, note it tells me this is a layout. That's what a layout is. A layout is how we print. And there's always a few options for layouts for any given report type. So in this case, these are lists. They all end in .list, and that means that they're all for this listing report, and they're layouts that are specific to it. You'll also have ones for chart and for diagram and for crosstab and so forth. These are all lists. So I can choose, for example, to show this on a letter portrait, a legal portrait piece of paper. I'll click PDF. What happens now, and you'll see the status happening down here, is it runs through and it runs the report, and then after it's run the report, it offers it to you for download. Okay, and this is the printout, and you've probably seen these if you've done any printouts, but this is a layout. This is a very simple layout, but it's a layout. And what you'll see in this layout is, and in every one of our outputs, unless you build your own custom ones, there will be a rectangle up top with this blue color in it. The name of your study will appear here. Your date range will appear here, and your date range will be abbreviated if it can be. So if we had run a study that was exactly 1/1/2010 to 12/31/2011 or 2012 or 2016, it would have just said 2010 to 2016 or 2010 to 2012. But because we specified a day within there that was not a solid year, we got it spelled out completely. So a little abbreviated if it can. There are ways around that, but that's how that does that by default. Then at the top left, you'll see that there are the number of crashes, and this is the number of filtered crashes. This is the name of your filter over on the right side. Again, these are the defaults. This is how the program creates it for you initially. You can modify those if that's not the way you want to see it. Below that is just a big area in the layout that allows the report to be displayed. And in this case, as I said, it's just a listing report. And that's all that you see. But it's a very basic report, but it's important to know that that's a layout that produced this. And by the way, the layout turns into a PDF when you add the data to it and we render it. Before then, it's just a layout that's sort of like a template for it. So I'm going to close that and close this box. All right. So what's in a layout? Let's click. This is where you get to layouts. So I'm just going to click on layout up here. And in this case, this particular agency has our default layout that everybody will have, and then they have two others. I know a few of our clients will have several layouts in here, and some of you may not have any. You may just have the default layout. As I say in all of these trainings and anytime we talk to you, if there's a particular type of format that you'd like, let us know. We'll help you build it, and we'll make that part of your shared templates that are available to everybody at your agency when you want to print something. And you can produce these PDFs. We can also show you how to do it, as we're doing today, while we're preparing it for you. But you can also, of course, prepare your own and add them to your templates list, and then everybody can access them. So I'm going to look at look at both of the ones that were already created for this client. This is actually, for those of you from California, this is available to all people in California using SWITRS. If you're in Arizona and you're using the ALICE standard data set, you'll have several reports that are specific to ALICE users. I'm trying to think if any other agencies have layouts specifically made for them, and I don't think so. I think they will just have the default and the individual ones for the different report types. I'm going to choose Diagram and History Report by selecting that. And I'm going to click on the report layout. This is the settings, which is where it jumped to as soon as I selected it. Now I'm going to choose the report, and we'll see what's in a Diagram and History Report. Okay, so right now it just looks like your standard collision diagram when you go to print it, but note that under it you then get a listing. So this is the same PDF that has several pages. It's got 3 pages to it, beginning of a 3rd page, that has a diagram at the top and a listing report below that. I'm going to go into, again, details on how you create each of these, but note it has the same basic layout here. It's got your bar up at the top that tells that the blue bar, it's got the study, it's got your date range, it's got your filter, your count from the filter, and then it's got a big area with your report in it and another big area with your report in it. It looks like in this particular one, it was not chosen to contain any information on the 2nd page regarding the study. It was considered to be continuing from the 1st. You can certainly change that as well. I believe the 3rd page, since it's a continuation of the same report, doesn't give you a header. The header is there because it was specifically an added page to the report, to the layout. Okay, I'm going to pick another one and run one more layout here. Okay, so we're going to look at time of day and diagram. I'll choose that. And again, I'm going to move over to the report itself. Okay, so in this case, what's gone on is the person who created this put a collision diagram on the right side, and they chose a layout for this that had 2 areas for display on the left side and 1 area on the right, and they chose to put a time of day here and the severity chart here. And so you have 3 reports showing up. They all came from the same study, and they all came with the same, therefore the same date range and crash count and so forth. So these are 3 different reports that have been combined into the single PDF. Okay, so how do you do this? Well, first of all, let's take a look at what's behind one of these. So I'm going to click on the settings for this. And what we see on this screen is, number 1, you see a rendering, a PDF rendering of the template, of the blank layout, if you will, that's going to be used. And you can see there's a title up here, and there's the subtitle, and there's an area, there's a info, right info, and left info. And no, I can't read those either. You can just see that the text is up there. And then you have these large areas. And if I click on one of these, if I go to main, that's the main area that just got highlighted in cyan. And if I click sub 1 or sub 2, I can see the highlighted areas where reports can go. The title doesn't actually highlight, but the title is this section up here. The subtitle is right underneath it. Left info and right info are those pieces of text up at the top. What these are areas that can be replaced. So you can put any content you want into each of these, and they all have different types. So for example, title and subtitle, left info and right info, they expect text. They're just going to be words up there. Main and sub 1 and sub 2 are going to expect to have some sort of output that can be rendered either as an image or as some sort of a report. And you'll see when you go to use the editor that it knows what types allowed in there, and it'll help you pick those. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to change one of these, right? We ran this just now, and we had a diagram here, and in fact, if you click on it, I'm going to show you that this section right here is actually the internal syntax that's being used to create that. You don't generally have to know that or know what's in it unless you want to do something really tricky. That's going to be beyond what we do today, changing these expressions. We have a helper in the system that knows how to put this content in there for you. But we display it so that if we ever need to tweak it a little bit, we can do that. But what you can see that can be helpful in reading this is this main section, which is right here, is using a function called diagram. That tells me I'm going to have a diagram there. If I click sub 1, this tells me I'm going to have a chart there, right? And it tells me, by the way, if I look in further, report template is time of day. So I can tell that's a time of day chart. If I click on sub 2, I'm looking at another chart, and this chart template is severity. Report template is severity. So you can sort of tell what's in there without going all the way into the editor. But I'm going to change one. I'm going to change the one up top, which is our sub 1, which is currently time of day. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Change Content for Selected Element right here. And right now, what you can see is it's drawing the content, right? So you have this one area on the screen that's going to show a report, and it's saying, where should I get this content? It's going to go to the main project. That's this one right here. It's going to go to this study, Lake Forest and Serrano. That's this study right here. And it's going to look for a report template in the system that is called time of day. Now I want you to note, and I'll go into a little more detail in a little while on this one, that time of day is not a report shown in this study. It's a template. It's what you would have found if you went to one of these areas and said, make me a new report. It would have used a template to create a report here. What's really cool about these layouts is that you can make nice generic ones that don't need you to create any reports in here at all. And that's our recommended way of using it. And I'll show you the two different ways you could use it. But for right now, assume everything's coming from these templates. So this is the name of a template. And I'm going to change from time of day to, for example, month of year. So I choose month of year, and if you look right under there, you have to pick what type of content you want. Now in this case, the only thing that's there is the chart template. Okay? You'll see in other cases you have several things you can choose from. As an example, if what you chose to show was study information, I could get the filter, I could get the record count, I could get the filtered record count, I could get the date range, and all of those would be available as content to insert. But right now I'm choosing something for an area in this report that requires a graphic. It requires that we put a graphic into that rectangle, so the only thing available from month of year is going to be my chart template. And you'll notice that as soon as I chose that chart template, it filled this in. It said chart, it said month of year, and it knew what kind of template to use. It also, you'll note, sets the size based on the size of that area on the page that, again, has already been determined for you. That's why you don't have to play with this here. You just have to worry about these selections. And I'll talk about some of these other options in a little bit, but for right now, that's what you're looking at. So I'm going to choose OK. And now sub 1 is month of year instead of being time of day. So if I go look at my report, I've now got a month of year in the top left, a severity down below, and a diagram on the right. Now, here's what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to first change its name. And we'll change this one to month of year and diagram. And I'm going to make sure it's saved. If you're ever doing anything where you're going to be explicitly saving something as a template, you just want to make sure everything was saved off. So I'm going to click in the tree. That's just a guaranteed way for it to refresh what you've got, make sure the name gets updated and everything. You'll see it renamed in the tree. We haven't talked today about templates, but this is how you save templates back. And the only way we'll be using this right now is once we've customized a layout, we're going to save it as a template or load it as a template, and you'll see how that works. So right now I have this new month of year and diagram, and I'm going to save that as a template. When I do that, it offers me to overwrite any of my other ones, like time of day and diagram, and I could overwrite it, replace it, or I can say, for example, month of year and diagram, and I'll say create a template. And here's the power of this. So now if I go to Lake Forest and Rockfield, and I've got my 51 crashes, I've got 32 that are within 50 feet of the intersection. Once I've selected this study, I can now go pick from my reports. One of those reports I can pick from is that new template that I just created, month of year and diagram. So I choose that, and now I'm no longer looking at Lake Forest and Serrano. I've now got that very same layout for Lake Forest and Rockfield. And that's my month of year and diagram and severity. Okay, I'm just going to take a quick break, take a sip here, some drink, and if anybody has any questions, jump in now. Otherwise, I'll keep going. You know, I did a training in, where was I at the time? I think that was Florida. I think it was Florida. It's back in 1999. And at the time, my wife owned a gift shop in town here. And that gift shop had managed to get a franchise for Beanie Babies. We were allowed to sell Beanie Babies out of the store. Crazy lines, all kinds of crazy people lining up to buy Beanie Babies. And no offense if any of you were buying Beanie Babies at the time, but I decided to take a handful of these to one of my trainings. And I have to tell you, I got really good response whenever I said, are there any questions? Because any good questions, I'd throw a Beanie Baby out into the audience. And, you know, there were 20 or 30 people there, and they actually started vying to get their questions in first. So I have to throw virtual Beanie Babies out at you guys to make sure I get some good questions from you today. Let's move on. All right, so what we just did there was to create a study that we used another study to create it, right? Another layout. We took a layout that already existed. It was the time of day and severity and diagram, and we just tweaked it a little bit. But what if you want to create a brand new one, and what are the options when you go to create a brand new one? So the way to create a brand new one is you click on layout, you make sure you have a study selected, right? You got to work somewhere. If the study wasn't selected, you wouldn't see any of these reports available. So I'm going to click on the layout up here, and I'm going to choose default. All of you have it. And for those of you that don't have any custom ones, that's all you've got, is you'll have the default layout. I choose layout, and I'll choose OK. And here's what I get. Very basic page. Remember, the other ones we looked at had several areas in here that you could put content in. This one is the default. It only has one big area, and nothing's in it, I might add. You'll notice there's nothing down here in main. So main is highlighted, and it's not showing me anything. So I wouldn't even see anything. If I go here and say, let's see that actual report. There's no report, it's a piece of paper. It's a PDF, and then I could even look at it, right? I can run the report for it and open that, and it's a big blank piece of paper. If you never need a piece of scratch paper, you know, just grab that. Okay. So now, I'm going to go to settings here. And I'm going to try to figure out, is this what I really want? Is what I'm looking for here to have a big blank sheet with one report in it, or do I want to put more stuff in there? For right now, let's try just putting one thing in there and see what we get. You'll notice, by the way, that we pre-fill title for you, so it's got the study name. We pre-fill subtitle for you. It's got the date range. We pre-fill left info, which has the filtered record count, and right info, which has the filter name. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to populate main, and I can populate that with any of these templates. I can put anything in there. So I might, for example, show my severity chart, and it says, what do you want to show? I'm going to show the chart template for the severity chart. So now that's filled in. I've got a chart, and it's my severity chart, and if I go to my report, I've created a very basic layout with just this one chart in it. Okay, severity chart filled in that big area. And I didn't need to change any of this because it's still operating on that one study from this one project, and it's still got the same counts and so forth for it. Let's see if we can get a little more fancy. Here are your options for the layouts that we have. Okay, I'm going to show you each one. I'm going to go to every one of them individually so you can see what we've got. I will say we can create more, and I'm working on creating a couple more, but if you have some ideas on what you'd like to see in there, perhaps you always want to show 4 specific reports or 5 specific reports, and we mostly have dealt with 2 or 3 in our templates here. But you want to put 5 particular charts in there with your diagram, let us know. Not hard to create, and we can do that. We can show you how to do it as well. It's a totally different language. It's well documented. It's a standard, so there are books about it and so forth, but it's a little bit tricky. And so if you want a layout, let us know. We'll create a layout template for you. This is not the same as creating a layout, which is what you put into the template. It's just the template, the boxes that are going to show up there. So we're looking at default right now. I also have a legal landscape. So it's a legal size piece of paper, but it's still a basic, simple report that just has one big area in it. I've got a legal portrait. So it's a tall one. Some of these can be real handy if you have listings and you're trying to show a lot of fields in your listing. You can show them into legal. You can shove them into legal templates and show more fields. I don't know if we did a, looks like not. It'd be nice to create a tabloid size, and I'll tell you why. If we create a tabloid size template, you could put something that's 11 by 17 in there, and you could perhaps choose to print it 11 by 17, but you could also take your 11 by 17 and print it at a much smaller scale. When you open up a PDF, it'll let you print it to any size page you want, no matter what size the page it was built for. So you could take a big 11 by 17, print it, and say print that onto 8.5 by 11, and it'll essentially scale down the whole report. So you can have a lot of fields, and if you've got a magnifying glass, you can see all the values in those fields. So that's legal portrait. Here's a letter landscape, just a standard size piece of paper, landscape mode. And then we get into some of the more interesting ones. This is landscape, and it's called 102, 1 over 2. This is one big area over 2 smaller areas on the report. Okay, you'll notice also that as we do this, it's preserving, if we had something in main, it's still preserving that goes up in main. Sub 1 and sub 2 are empty, so sub 1 has nothing in it, sub 2, because we never populated sub 1 or sub 2. But because we populated main way up at the top here in the default, it remembers that for other reports. So another one we have is 1 by 1. This is frankly one of my favorites because it basically just lets you associate 2 reports. You put a diagram in a listing or a diagram in a chart, gives you that basic information. 1 by 2 is also handy. This is one place here where you might put a diagram, and then you can put a couple of reports here. Whatever you put in the last area, like this one in this case, or if we were looking at the 1 over 2, this one here, if it fills this, if it's a listing, it'll fill this and then proceed on to the next page. So you can have content that runs bigger than this in the last one, and that'll just overflow on its way out. In fact, I think that if you put it in this one, it'll push everything else down as well. So I think you can actually run a report here that pushes down all the way to the bottom until it's done with that listing, and then it'll put the next 2 reports below that. We'll play with that today, make sure that's actually the case. Here's a 2 over 1, so 2 smaller reports and a larger one. 2 by 1, which is 2 first and then 1 on the right. Letter portrait, I think we already saw one like that. And here's letter portrait 3-page. This is kind of neat because this is 1 page of content, another page of content, another page of content. So you can get 3 full pages, which you could do, right? You could go into the program and make a diagram and print it, make a listing, print it, make a chart, print it. But this way you get to put them all into one report, and most importantly, you don't have to create those 3 reports, right? You create the one layout, and it contains what those 3 reports would have contained if you'd made them as reports underneath your study. Okay, so this is a 3-page, and this is a 2-page, similar. Let's try filling these 2, because these will be sort of handy to show how that works. So on a 2-page, I've got a I got a bunch of variables here that I can fill in. You'll notice these are all called page 2. So I have page 2's title, subtitle, left info, and right info. So that's these guys here. That's the title, subtitle, right info, and left info. But that's for page 2. So it's actually what's going to go right here. And right now they're empty, and I think that's fine to start with. We'll throw some stuff in there a little bit later. But as with our prior report that I showed you, there was no content in there because we knew it was the same study's worth of data being put down there, and there really wasn't a reason to repeat that. So then we're looking at these, and these are very much like the other ones we saw. We've got a main, which is the main area. If I click on this, this should highlight this area. Oops, that's main on the first page. I wanted to look at main on the second page. Page 2. Pete's going, where's page 2 main? Oh, look at my 3 page. Maybe we made a mistake on our 2 page. Pretty sure we had those though. That's very interesting. I have to figure out how we did that. So let's put some content in it. Maybe that'll tell us what's going on there. I was expecting to see page 2 main, and I'm not seeing it. What is? Oh, it's referred to as sub 1. Okay, that makes some sense. So we have sub 1, and we have sub 2, which is the 3rd page. That makes some more sense to me. The reason they're named sub 1 and sub 2 instead of being main 1, 2, 3 is that if you have all these other types of layouts, like this one, that uses main, sub 1, sub 2. And the idea is if you've put something in these two and then you decide, no, I want a 3-page report, it will move your content from here into the 2nd page and from here into the 3rd page because they're sub 1, sub 2, sub 3, and so forth. So let's go back to that one. We'll go back to our 2-page or 3-page and put some content in there. So main is going to be the first one. And let's put in there a diagram. So I click on change content. And again, I leave this stuff up as defaulted up at the top, and I'll choose a diagram. And again, I can choose any of my templates for diagrams. I'm going to choose 4-way intersection, and I'll choose diagram template. You always have to set this one right below. It'll always show up as custom, and you set it up with what you want to put in it. And then I say OK. And now this will contain a diagram when I render. The next 2 pages have nothing in them. So I'll go down here and I'll go to sub 1, and that highlights my 2nd one. And so for sub 1, I'll change that, and we'll put a listing in there. Let's choose, we could do our case ID list. See if there's anything else. I haven't done a multi-line in here. Not exactly sure what that'll look like, but you know, that's what these sessions are for, right? We see stuff we haven't seen before. So I'm going to take this multi-line report, and I'm going to put that list template for that into here. And that's going to be what my page 2 is going to be. And it may even flow down to the next page, in which case this will get pushed down. Sub 2 is the last page. And for that one, I'm going to put a chart in there. So I'm going to choose, let's say, time of day, and I'll put the chart template in. And so now we got all 3 of those filled out. And by default, it already fills out our title, has already got our study name up there, and so forth. I'll give you an idea, though, of what's on, for example, page 2 title. Right now, there's nothing in there. Let's go edit that, and I'll show you what could go in there. So one option for page 2 title, you'll notice that now when I choose these, I choose a report template, or I could choose a study piece to get information from. This list now contains stuff that can be represented as text. Remember before, whenever I clicked on custom, it was looking for a graphic output. And that's why you typically would just have chart template, diagram template, listing template, and that was all. In here now, you're starting to see things like study name, study description, study record count. And I can stick any of those in to where the title goes at the top of that page. So I can put anything I wanted to that page 2 title. So for example, I could put in as the title for this, the date range. Okay, and so it's going to go and get the date range and put that in. And I'll pick a subtitle for that. And for my subtitle, instead of, remember normally we put the study up there. And so now we're going to put the date range on top. And let's see what else we can put in there. So note, by the way, this box here, where we're picking the content, is coming from 2 places. It's being filled, number 1, well, 3 places, being filled from the project, the study, and the report. And it's saying anything that can be gathered from any of those 3 things, you'll put in this box. So I can put the project name in, which is main. I can put the project description in. I can put the study name or the study description or study record count, or I can put chart template information, chart information into there, or my filter, because that came from the study. So anything from the project, study, or report can go in there. So let's see, I'm going to choose to put in there, just to make the point here, I'm going to put project name. So that would be main, would show up in there. And you'll see it says project name. Okay, let's take a look at what we've created. So now it's going to render all three of those reports, the diagram, the listing, and the chart. Put them each on our own page, and it's going to update the text of the second page. So the first page still has the study name and the study dates. Then we get our diagram. Then our second page, whoops, we'll have to look at that one. Our second page gives us the date that we selected, the name of the project, and it looks like we have an error showing our listing. So I'll take a look at why we're getting that in just a moment. That's programmer error, not user error. Something is messed up in what's in the data. And the third page is the chart we were looking for, and we didn't set any title or subtitle or any of the info fields, but we got our time of day chart at the bottom of that. I'm not sure why we're not getting that listing. We'll investigate that in a bit. Okay, let's take one look at one other feature of this. So if I'm looking at my page 2, where I did my title and my subtitle, let's go examine that a little bit again. So for my title of page 2, page 3 title, page 2 title. Let's go change our page 2 title. Right now our page 2 title says get the date range, and that's what it puts in the title. See this pre-text and post-text? That's just text that's going to go before or after this whatever you've calculated to put in there. So in this case we're getting the studies date range and we're putting that in, and we might want to put the words date range ahead of it. And so that's what's going to be in the title for page 2. And the subtitle, which right now is project name, like that, we're going to say is the project. Okay. So now we have our diagram up top that we had, and we've changed this to say date range and the date range. The name of the project is the project. So you can annotate that a bit and put in whatever variables you want. I think I have an idea of why this did this, so we're going to go give that a shot. Otherwise, we'll just ignore it and treat that as something we should address later. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at my sub 1, which is that one that was not showing correctly. I'm going to guess that that's because I chose this funky multi-line template. We don't do a lot of multi-line stuff. We built this one specifically for a couple of agencies, and it may have a problem being embedded inside of these types of layouts. So I'm just going to choose a nice simple one like case ID and see how that works. Don't want you to think you can't put listings in your layouts. Diagram, my nice listing here, and my chart. So once again, I've gone and created this because I'm one of the power users at the agency, and I want to make sure everybody else has access to this. So I've got my diagram, listing, chart, and I'm going to push that back as a template again. First, I want to give it a nice name. So I'm going to call it diagram and list and time of day. You can give it any name you like. And again, I'm going to make sure that gets saved because it's still called default. This will just update it here. And now I'll push it back as a template. And again, you can push any reports. This is not just for layouts. This is for any report you're looking at can be made into a template. So I'll probably give this the same name as I gave the title for it. So we'll call this DGM list time of day. And I'll create a new template. And now that a template exists in this listing, when I go to create a new one, diagram list time of day, and I say OK, and I'll get a new one down here. Been given the number 1 because it's already got one with that name in there. But now I haven't had to create those 3 reports just to get this output. I get this output because it knows how to read from the templates. Okay. All right. So I'm actually going to stop for questions again. This time I need to have some questions. Someone's got to think of a good question. You can do it. Okay, no questions. We're going to dive deeper. We just keep going deeper whenever we don't get a question. All right, so let me tell you how these layouts were originally built, because there's one thing you can't do with the type of layouts I've been showing you, and it's handy to do. Let's say that I'm looking at this place, Lake Forest and Rockfield. All right, and I do my collision diagram. And wow, that's an interesting collision diagram. I'm going to make sure that's all reset. First, let's get a regular 4-leg intersection into there. I'm just changing the schematic here to our standard and normal. It's important this be a generic one for the purpose of what I'm about to show you. I'm going to reset my crash customizations. That simply means if I've dragged any crashes around or rotated them or anything, I'm putting them right back where they were. So now we should have a more standard diagram here. Okay, looks like the spacing was made a little bit tighter. Let's actually clear that up as well. In fact, you know what we're going to do? Best way to do this, I'm going to delete this diagram. I just want to make sure that it's the absolute pristine as it was created by the system diagram. So now I'm back at the study level. I'm going to say make me a new diagram, and I'm going to choose the 4-way intersection. That'll give me a default that is exactly how the system would create it. So note what I did was I chose the template called 4-way intersection. Now, when I click on print, it's a slightly different kind of layout that we use, and I'll show you why. It's not so much different as how it was built. If I click on this, I will get exactly this diagram that's on this screen, because it's not looking for a template. I'm going to open this up. Okay, it's looking for the actual report, the one that's on the screen. So let me show you what I mean by that. If I grab this crash, I say move, let's just get all of these crashes over here. And put them over there. And again, to make sure everything gets saved off, I'm just going to click on the tree over here, just to be certain that I don't have any artifacts I don't expect. So there's no crashes in this area. If I do a print, that's exactly what I'm going to get. This may seem obvious, but let's see what actually happens here. So I open this up, and I got no crashes in this area because they've all been dragged over to here. That's because that layout was looking directly at this collision diagram. It was not looking at a template. It was looking at a report. I'll say that again. What happens when you click on any of these is we open up a dialog box and give you a list of templates. When you click on one of them, it creates a report, and that's what goes here. So reports were built from templates. Well, this report was built from a template, but then I modified its content. So it's no longer the same as what the template would generate. If the template were run, those crashes would appear back where they belonged. Okay, so what happens if I go click and say, let's make a new layout, and I tell it that what I want, we'll start with our default. In fact, we'll keep it at the default, nice simple layout. And what do I want to put in main? Well, I go to main and I say, let's put in here our 4-way intersection diagram template. So if you're a step ahead of me right now, it's using the template. There's going to be no dragged crashes here at all. So I'm not using this report. I'm using the template that came from up here, the generic template. Now the power of using the template is I can drop it into any one of these studies and it'll just work. If a template works in here, it'll work in here, it'll work in here, it'll work in here. All those layouts can just be dropped in. But what if I really wanted to print this particular intersection? The way that's done is that when you choose your content from main, rather than choosing project, study, and a report template, you actually want to choose a report, only that's not enabled. So what you want to do is choose Use Specific Report, and now what it's doing is it's listing for me all of the reports that are in this study, because I've already chosen the study right here. So now I can choose my four-way intersection, which is an actual report, and you'll see it says diagram. It doesn't say template. It's going to choose my diagram. And you'll notice what happens there is now I get my four-way intersection, but it's a diagram report, and this is a report, not a report template. Now when I show this, I get the actual real report that is right here, included in there. No crashes over on the right-hand side. So the difference in what I did, and I go back and show you one more time, difference in what I did was that I chose to use a specific report, and then I got to pick the report, versus choosing a template, which is from all the available templates in the system, and choosing a report and choosing a template. Okay, and that's really powerful because I'll tell you what you can do in here that's kind of neat. Let's say, let's just start completely from scratch here. In fact, I'm going to create a brand new project even. Let's see, Lake Forest and Rockfield, and Lake Forest and Serrano. I don't know who's got microphones, so I can't ask people to remember that. Tanya, would you please write down Rockfield Boulevard and Serrano Road, and I'll remember Lake Forest. So I'm going to jump in. Oh, you know what I can do? I'm going to do one better than that. I'm going to go to my intersection location list. We'll just throw in new features now and then for you to take a look at. So it looks like that one's already selected. And let's actually clear selections. And let's choose these two that we were just looking at, Lake Forest Drive and Serrano, Lake Forest and Rockfield. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a couple of collision diagrams from them. So let's go to four-way intersection. And what I'm going to do, the reason I said I was going to go make a new project and create new content in there, but I'm actually going to go in here, say make me a new project when I ask for those. So I asked for those out of this high crash location list, and it makes me two collision diagrams, two studies, and it gives me a new project called Project 1. That's important because I'm going to be working in this project to create new layouts as opposed to using the other project's content. So here's what I'm going to do though. Lake Forest and Rockfield. In fact, maybe what we want to do is do both of them, Lake Forest and Rockfield. What I'm going to do here is Lake Forest and Rockfield, and I'm going to change its time period. So I'm going to say this is going to run from 2010, 12/31, 2012, Lake Forest and Rockfield. And in fact, we're going to get rid of bicycle because I think we're going to lose crashes if we don't. And the next one I'm going to do is go to this one. I'm actually going to change this to Lake Forest and Rockfield as well. We're going to do two time periods for the same location. Rockfield Boulevard. Okay. And we're going to change this one to 112013. 12/31/2016. Okay. All right, so now I have two studies here. Oh, I didn't clear the filter for that one. And what I'll also do, it looks like I should name them differently because while they do have a slightly different name, it would be nice to know what they actually are inside of them, that 2010 to 2012 and 2013 to 2016. So let's call this one 10 to 12. And we'll call this one 13 to 16. And we'll let those update. Okay, so now I've got these two studies that are the same location, right? But that location, and they each have the same diagram, but at different time periods. So what if I make a layout, and I could make it in this study, I could make it in this study, it really doesn't matter for what we're going to do now. I'm going to create a layout, and let's pick our default layout just to give ourselves a simple template to work with. And what I'm going to do is choose the 2-page. In fact, maybe we'll do a side-by-side. That'll make it kind of neat. So we'll do our landscape side-by-side, one by one. And let's put something in each of those locations. So I'll go to main, that's our left one, and I'll put the diagram in there. Now, what I can do is I can choose a template if I want to, but what I can also do is choose the specific report. So I'm going to grab the 10 to 12 and put it on the left. So I'm in a study here. I'm going to choose 10 to 12. We haven't changed the study before. So I'm choosing Lake Forest and Rockfield, 2010 to 2012. And I'm going to say I want a specific report out of there. And I'm going to choose the 4-way intersection. It's the only report in there. That's why I can't choose anything else. And I'll choose that diagram. For the other report, sub 1, instead of choosing 10 to 12, I'm going to choose 13 to 16. Use a specific report, 4-way intersection, diagram. So now, rather than using templates, I'm actually crossing between studies. Now, there's one thing I do need to do here that I should probably do right away. You'll notice that the title of this is drawing from the study name, right? That could be a little bit dangerous because the study name that we're building this under is 13 to 16, but we're going to have content from 10 to 12 and 13 to 16. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go change that. I think I'm actually just going to clear it out entirely. That's probably the easiest. And I'm just going to put in here 2 studies. I could type in whatever I wanted. I could type in that it's 10 to 12 plus 13 to 16, whatever I want to put in there. But I'm just going to put in 2 studies. And I should probably change the subtitle because it's coming up with date range in there. And so, again, I'm going to go in and change my subtitle and just get rid of the content that's there. And I'm going to say, what are we looking for? Date range. This is 2010 through 2016. I think those will work. Might have to put something in the description, but we'll take a look. Yeah, those both failed. I'll show you why in just a moment. But here are my 2 diagrams, and they're for 2 different time periods because I haven't used a template against them. I've actually asked for the specific study and the specific report for each of those. Now, what's important is I'd need to have a study named this and a study named this in order for that to work. If I was to template this and then say, yeah, let's drop that layout into another study, it's not going to work unless those 2 studies exist. But it is very powerful if that's exactly what you're intending. And you can start naming these just the way you want. Intersection 1, intersection 2, and every single time you ran this report, just make sure you have an intersection 1 and an intersection 2 available to you for that. So the reason those texts didn't work, let's just drop in there for a second. When I did the title, I should probably have the ability to do a blank in here. Let me see if there is some way to do that. There really isn't. I'm going to change that soon because I don't like that. But essentially, we have an expression here, and if you've played with filters or any other expressions, you know, I can't leave just a blank in there. I have to put something in it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this empty string, just so there's nothing in there, but at least it's something that the parser can look at. I will be changing that soon so that it can handle a complete blank. Then it should be able to put 2 studies there instead. And I'm going to do the same thing for subtitle. Is just put a blank in there. Oh, can I actually edit it right there? No. Yeah. And by the way, not to throw anybody too much, but if you're someone who plays around a lot with the system and with our expressions, you could actually be doing this 2010 through 2016, or you could put an expression in there that actually would calculate that all out for you based on the 2 studies. You can get very complex in there if you want to. I'm just going to clear it so I can type in exactly what I want to type in. And I believe we'll see that that works. So now it says 2 studies, and it says 2010 through 2016. And that's just hard-coded static text that we put up there. We could put anything up there. We'd probably, I guess, want to change our number of crashes and clears up. If you're going to include multiple time periods there, that's what you'd want to do. What would be another way to do that? So another way to do it, well, I should stop there, do a quick question. Anybody have any questions for me at this point? We're going to do this in a way that maybe makes a little more sense for display and not have to do quite so much work to annotate the top of the page here. Okay, I'll just go ahead and do that then. Let's go back to our layout and say, well, that was nice, but the truth is that it's a little bit complicated to annotate the top of the page. I'm going to delete, actually, we'll just create a new one. And choose default. And when we create this new one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 pages because that leaves room for 2 headers. So I'm going to choose a 2-page, and we'll go to the main page. And once again, I'll move through this one a little more quickly because we just did it a second ago. I'm going to grab from this study, specific report, and I'm going to grab the 4-way intersection. Did I get the right study? No, 10 to 12. And I'm going to grab my specific report, and I'm going to grab 4-way intersection, and I'm going to do the diagram from that. Then for the second page, we're not going to do the text yet. We're going to do the diagram, the layouts. So put the 2 diagrams in there. Second page, do the same idea. Make sure I've got 13 to 16 selected, and do our 4-way intersection. Choose diagram. So now we've got our 2 diagrams, but what happened last time was the top section contained the wrong information because it was drawing from this study as opposed to drawing from both studies. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say that this first one, we'll go to main. What do we want to have there as the main title, the top part? Right now it's got study name, but the study name that it's looking at is 13 to 16, and page 1 is supposed to be 10 to 12. Okay, I'm going to then choose my study name. And so now I've got my study name, but now it's coming from this location. Okay, did I get the right one there? 10 to 12. I was kind of expecting this to change a little bit. Ah, there we go. It's interesting, actually, this looks like it's not taking the way I expect it to. Let's see what it does. So title and then subtitle should be date range. So we want date range for this one. And we'll go to the page 2 title. And page 2 title should be coming from 13 to 16. And it should grab study name from there. And page 2 subtitle, same idea. We want that to grab from 13 to 16 and get the date range from that one. And cross your fingers because I was expecting these to look a little bit differently, and I may have to go back and take a look at why they're not updating, but they may be just exactly what we expect. 13 to 16. Now they did what I was worried they were going to do. The way I spec'd that out, we should have the 2 different sets up at the top, but they're both drawing from this report. When I post this, we're going to post this recording after it's all done. I will go back, new learning lesson for me, I'll go back and figure out how to annotate this to show you what I did wrong, but I'm not sure what I did wrong at this point that allowed that to look to the current study. It should have looked to the other study when it gathered that information. But now we have our 2 diagrams that have 2 different locations. And by the way, because I specified the specific diagram, if I came into my 13 to 16, my second page, and I dragged some crashes around, because these are not templates, it should show that diagram as I've edited it. Okay, whereas had I said use the template, and I'm going to emphasize one more time where that would come from because that's the normal way to do it. If I looked for main, if I looked for sub 2, I look up here, sub 2, oops. So those of you who don't know me, let me see who's in our list there. Pete's losing his mind right now. All right, four-way intersection diagram. It's drawing from the diagram. It's interesting. What we're actually grabbing here is this, and that's what it's remembering, but it's rendering slightly differently. I'm sorry about that, and hopefully this isn't looking too unclear because of that. I'm going to change this to be a template so that you can see what's going on here. If I choose four-way intersection as a template instead of as the actual diagram, it changes this entire block of text. If I say OK to that and I go display my sub 2 now, I go look at the second page, it will not have those crashes moved because I'm using the template that comes from up here, and that doesn't know that I've moved the crashes. In order for it to show that it moved the crashes, it needs to refer directly to that diagram. Like that. In this case, it's looking specifically for that one diagram report. And now it will show the moved crashes. Okay, and those crashes are moved again. When you're looking at a layout, by the way, you can print straight out of here. You got print, you got save, and so forth. You can also click print here. We've had a couple of clients in the past that have had where we've had problems with the way that the PDF viewer, whether it's Adobe or what you have on your machine, where the PDF viewer doesn't embed properly in here, and so you don't actually see this. If you ever have that, you can still build your whole layout, only when you get to wanting to do this screen, just press the print button and select PDF. It will render that the same way it would have rendered for the screen, but instead of trying to show it in line in the program, it'll let you pop up whichever viewer you want to look at it. So once that's done rendering, I say open, and you can open it up. In this case, I'm opening it up in a program called Foxit. You can open it up in Adobe or what have you, and that's the same rendering as you would have had on the screen. It's also handy if you just want it to pop up into another window so you can keep working on what you're doing in the program and still have that up. All right. You'll note this has gone blank. This goes blank after printing because we're trying to hide what would the PDF viewer, it would normally cover it up. If you ever see that happen when you're looking at these layouts, just click back in the tree. It'll just re-render that for you. We hide that and it looks like we're not bringing it back after we hide it for the display of the box. No idea, that's an Adobe question. All right, now looking for some questions. Manar says this is bouncing way above my head. Manar, some of this is supposed to, some is not. For everybody's information, let me describe how to use the information that I've given you today. So at the simplest level, some agencies, as I said, like California, like Arizona, and I believe there's a few others that we've created layouts for you. In that scenario, all you need to know is you make sure you're inside of some study and you click on the layout button and you pick one of the ones that's been created for you and you have access to that. So that's the first level, is that we've created it, you can use it. Okay, and you just pick it and you get the report that you wanted. You don't have to go through any of the settings. That's level one. Level two is you have someone in your office that works on this, that learns how to use layouts, works with us to learn to use layouts, or we create a layout for you. You ask us for a particular layout, and all you have to do, draw it on a piece of paper, send us a Word document, here's what you'd like to be seeing using your reports. You know, I'd like to have this kind of report plus this kind of report, this kind of report that the program does, and add them to the PDF. And you'd like them all dropped into that PDF. And then we'll create the layouts, or that person in your office can create the layouts and put them up there, and then you have access to them. So that's the second way to do that. So the first is that you use pre-used ones. The second one is you have someone in the office that knows how to do it, or you have us do it, and we create them for you, and then they appear, and then it's much like the first case. They're already there waiting for you. And the third is the advanced level that we're doing here, and that is where you actually take the time yourself and you walk through and build it. In fact, I'm going to add a fourth level, because the right way to do this almost always is to create these based on templates. So when you're in, I'm going to go back in there, I'm just going to keep emphasizing this piece of it. When you're in here and you go to choose this location, don't use specific report. Use your templates. This is your templates. Because if you check this box, whatever is in here must exist in your study in order for it to be displayed in the PDF. It's actually looking at your existing report with that name. Whereas if you choose template, you can drop it into any study, anytime, and it will always work, as long as you pick out of this list of templates. So you build that, you build it out of templates, and then you can display those in any study. The last level, and this is the new 4th level I'll describe, is when you click on here, and that's really custom. That's today you're working on this and you want a specific report dropped into that PDF, and you want to take this one and this one and the 3rd one and the 5th one that you created, and you want them all to show up in one PDF. You can do that. Just know that it's not a repeatable report. There's no sense making a template from it, because if you ever templated that report, it wouldn't work unless you named all your next studies exactly the same and all the reports inside of them exactly the same. Okay, let's see what other questions we've got here. Can a column be added to reflect, say, left-hand turn crashes in addition to crash count on high crash location template? The answer to that's absolutely yes, and we'll take that one. If we haven't got more questions in about 20 minutes, I'll show you how we've done that. And I'm sorry, I should remember this. Debbie, where are you from? I know where Debbie is, I just can't remember right now.
Gilbert.
Gilbert, thank you. Debbie, we created this for, thank you. We created this for Alice, and we can modify it to work for you as well. We have a template. The question really there is, if you're making a high crash location list, our normal high crash location list will simply have rank, intersection name, and count. And what she's looking for is a breakdown of type of collision, or perhaps in her case, just left-hand crashes. And the answer is yes. And I think we may have done that for the state. We may have done a couple of others. I know we did them by year. That's one possibility. And I think we did severity. We may not have done type of collision. But I'll take a look. We'll find that, and we'll get you one of those so that you have that in your kit of tools. And if I convince you successfully to move over to Alice, you've already got it. It'll already be in there. Okay, other questions? And by the way, if anybody thinks about dropping off right now, I got a couple of cool things to show you at the end of this that are just coming up in the next version, unrelated to this particular feature, that you want to hang out and take a look at. It'll be kind of exciting. And you can thank Minar for them. Questions? Looks like I'll be coding sooner today than I thought. That's good news. All right. So let me first show you what Debbie's looking for, and I'm going to log out of Lake Forest. Well, actually, they may actually have one of those in here now that I think about it. What's the best way to do this? Let's go back to the original project we were working in. We'll go back to main and collision type summary. So what this is an all data study. Looks like it's limited by bicycle, and then we've created a location list that has, in addition to the rank and the location, it has in it the various types of collisions. So Debbie, you can just type this in, but if this is exactly what you're looking for, we'll make one that breaks out. Now yours would have slightly different fields. It depends on the names of type of collision in Arizona compared to in California. But if this is exactly what you're looking for, you can let us know, and yours will be broken out this way. Or we can create one where it's just got total collisions and left turn collisions as the other option. And you can let us know what you'd like. At this point, creating these is a little bit tricky, and so we do these ourselves. I can show you because it is technically possible for you to do it. You don't need any additional functionality from the program to do it. You'll do it the same way we would do it, but it's tricky, and so I recommend you let us do it. What I'd like to have working very soon is the ability to have your high crash location list and specify a category list, like a chart, to go across the top, and then we do a breakdown of whatever that category list is and put that across the top, which is essentially what we're doing here, but it's just tricky to configure it to do that. So that was Debbie's question. We don't have show of hands in here, huh? One of these presentation systems lets you show hands. You can raise your hand and say yes or no. Let me see if I can actually fire up something here for you for a second. I'm going to blank the screen, but don't go away. Let's just not show a monitor. Okay, and see if I can fire up a piece of software here. And I will remain taking questions until everybody's done. Anybody has any other questions? What I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up a new feature, and for those of you that have been using the software, what this feature is up until now, filters were only able to be, you could only select one filter at a time. And what that meant is if you created, for example, a filter that said I want all my crashes within 75 feet of the intersection, and then you had another filter down the line that said I want all left turn collisions. You couldn't get both of those active at the same time. What you'd have to do is create another filter that was called left turn collisions within 75 feet of the intersection. And that's not convenient. Let's see if I can get into my code here now. So what we did was we made it possible to select multiple filters. And I'll tell you why this is a thing we can thank Manar for, because the next stage of this is going to be very exciting. Go figure, it won't let me into my own machine. Anybody know my password? What I'm doing right now is I'm running off of my actual development machine, so I can show you what we just put out. Oh, actually, we've actually got this on our beta server as well. That's what we'll do. So this is our beta server. It includes stuff that we've produced, we've created, but it's not published yet. It's not out for the world to look at just yet, but it's getting there. Let's find a location here, hopefully with some data in it. Okay, I have 17 crashes here, and the normal way of doing a selection, a sub-selection of that, would be to go in here and click on the filter. You guys can't see my screen at all, and nobody's telling me that. Oh, there you go. Now Tanya's pointing it out. Day late. All right. So what I've done here is I have logged into our beta system, as you can see. So it's not the published system yet. And I've selected a study. And I'm looking at my study, which has 17 crashes in it right now. In fact, it looks like we have a listing I can look at. That'll help us out a little bit. And let's get some fields into my listing. Let's grab that one. And by the way, there's a reason we call this beta. Forgive me if something doesn't go exactly as I describe it. It's how come it's not on your systems yet. Okay. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to grab, see, we have injury severity over here. Well, in the past, what you've had to do is you choose a filter, and there were no checkboxes here. What you had was you selected one of these filters. And what that meant was, as I said, if you wanted left turn collisions, I'm going to skip severity. If you wanted left turn collisions and you wanted 75 feet, you had to go in and create a filter. Like, for example, you would choose untitled, right? And you have to go in and put the content saying distance less than 75 feet and type of collision is left turn, right? So I'd need this content, distance less than 75, and I would need this content, collision manner equals left turn. The new system now is capable of combining those for you. So I can click on distance less than 75, check also left turns. Heck, I can even choose bicycle. It'll add those all together for me, and you'll see the new name of this filter, the new name of your selection, is distance less than 75, and bicycle, and left turns. I'm going to turn off bicycle so we actually see some data. Okay, so there's our left turn that's within 75 feet of the intersection. So the idea behind this, just so you know where we're headed, now I find this exciting simply because I think it will simplify. I know a lot of people that have filters that are every possible combination of every other filter they've created, and that's really tricky. By doing this, it just simplifies the whole process. You can get rid of a whole bunch of filters. But the reason we created this is because what we're going to have very shortly, this was the trickiest part of doing it, what we're going to have very shortly in the program is on our study panel here, we're going to let you pick a list of filters, and it could be all of them. It'll probably be your favorites only that will appear, and you won't have to go into the filter box at all. You'll be able to say, I want this location, Power Road and Superstition Springs Boulevard, within 75 feet, bicycle, go, make my diagram, rather than having to go in and pop up filters and build filters for all those things. Once you've built the filters you need, you won't even end up picking from filters here. Your selections will occur right on your study panel along with the rest of the criteria. What that does is it centralizes your picking of parameters. Date range, street names, any filter restrictions that you want. They'll stop looking like a filter on this screen. You'll still have the functionality. You'll still be able to go build filters this way. But in addition, they will become essentially first-class selections on your main study panel. And that's really useful if your use of filters is primarily 3 or 4 combinations as opposed to complex filters for every single study. If you always want everything within 75 feet, you always want something within your city, or you always want bicycle, you'll be able to just pick bicycle within 75 feet and so forth without having to work on that. So that's coming up really soon. This feature I'll probably be pushing out in no time at all. It seems to be working pretty nicely right now. So we'll probably be pushing this out shortly, and I won't give you a date, but very soon we'll put out the version that's got the new way of creating these studies and reports, which will include filters on the study panel. Okay. Any questions? Anything anybody would like to see? We can now go off topic. It does not have to be layouts. Anything you'd like to discuss about functions in the program? All right. Oops, here we go. If I have created a bar graph with a 10-year history, and want to delete previous 5-year history, can I delete those from the chart, or I need to create a new database for 5 years only? Put another way, can you edit the bar graph? So, Debbie, I'll say the right way to do it is not so much to create a new study, but rather to modify your existing study. So if you have, for example, chosen, let's see if I can do this right here. So this is a study of 2010 to 2014. This isn't 10 years, but it should have the same concept behind it. So if I choose to do a bar graph, and I do this by year, before everybody starts dropping off, by the way, I just heard someone drop off. Before he disappears, do recheck the schedule if you haven't looked at it lately. The training sessions are slightly modified for next month since I will be in Arizona, and you want to take a look at that. Make sure that the session that you may be waiting for, we may have moved around a little bit. Also, if you're in Arizona, I will be in Arizona March, I guess the end of February, and March 1st, 2nd, something like that. I'll be sending out an email to let people know that's the case. Most Arizona people already know that. There'll probably be a short training on the Monday before the ITE IMSA conference. So to further on this question, we now have a bar chart that has this data. The right way to do this is simply to go in, click on the study. I'm not going to do this, but to click on the study and change the date range. That will change your bar graph. To limit the bars in your bar graph, you could create a bar graph that only has 5 years allowed in it. That would be modifying the chart itself. So I'd go into the category list, and this category list is actually a shared and not editable one. So I would just duplicate that. So I'll take my collision by years copy. You could go in here, edit this category list, and when it comes back, delete the years that you don't want. I'm not sure that that's what you'd actually want to do. You would do this obviously with a copy. That's why we won't even let you modify the main one. But you could delete all of the ones in here that you actually don't want showing up in the chart, but what would happen is you'd end up with a bunch of crashes that couldn't be put into the chart. So I think the right answer to your question is you want to change the study or you want to duplicate and modify the study. I don't think you want to change the chart because the chart is designed to reflect what's in the study, and I think you want to make sure that you're not sort of faking out the chart. We actually used to have in Intersection Magic the ability to edit the data in the chart. You could quite literally claim that 2011 only had 3,000 crashes in it just by changing the number to 3,000. You can imagine that got some people into some trouble if they used that. Okay, Manar, am I going to be here in Phoenix for ITE? I will most certainly be there for the conference, which is Wednesday, Thursday. Tuesday is mostly set up, but I may have some time during the morning. And then Monday, if I can arrange for a hotel room to use, a meeting room, I'm going to try to hold a training there. I sent out a survey some time ago. If you haven't answered that, go check your email. You want to check the survey and see whether you're looking for, if you're in Arizona, in the Phoenix area, beginning training, advanced training, full day, half day, that sort of thing. That's what was on the questionnaire. Other questions? Thank you all for coming in and watching this. I hope you got something out of it. And again, if you got nothing else out of it, contact us to create the stuff you'd like to see, because now you know what can be done. Okay, I don't want to be the last one off. We'll race you all off. Thank you all. And I'm going to end the meeting now and stop recording. Have a great day. Bye.